how do we engage with the audience more?
Just tell people to comment.
Well, hold
this
on.
is how we'll start.
Oh God,
this
here we go again with
you
and your comments.
Tell people to comment.
Stop with the anger.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
So angry. Listen.
Why.
Hold on. I want to give an extra special shout out to Ernest Goodley. We'll tag him, right, for his contribution to this situation scenario. We would not be sitting here right now doing this if it wasn't, for Ernest and also for Marcella.
Why don't you leave a comment below? Tell us who's influential in your life.
There you go.
Now start the program. I can't hear you.
I didn't agree to this.
Wait, you're not wearing your little hat.
Dude, this was a punt. I got nothing. I got no hoodie. I got no hat. I had to come straight from work.
Yes. So to the viewers, listeners, we had a podcast that we were trying to edit, but we had technical difficulties. So instead of skipping a week, we decided we were going to quickly do a podcast for this week.
See how it goes.
See how this goes. That's exactly right. This could be bad. Do you have to do your ebb and flow if it's just us two?
Man, this whole day. This whole day's been nothing but ebbing and flowing. No, it's all good. I'll be real interested to see where this conversation goes. Are we just gonna shoot straight into it?
Well, we've talked about doing this episode.
Yeah, we have.
Past 20 years.
High school episode.
See, I got to cut that out. I
know you do.
I already have it mapped out. I have it mapped out how I think this episode could go.
Okay.
Because, so the whole thing here is, and by the way, I have 1 hour.
To get this done?
Yeah, 45 would be the sweet spot.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Pressure. That feels like I can't ask questions.
You're going to have to ask a lot of questions because I'm going to skip over a lot of details. Because you and I have discussed doing this particular episode literally even before podcasting. We've talked about this past 20 years. In all honesty, it's been 20 years now.
Longer than 20 since the breakup.
Well,
yeah, man. It wasn't in the 2000s. We're in 24. It's over 25 years ago.
No, it was 97. Do the math.
Yeah.
97.
Yeah. So it's
96. 96, the year that Crash came out.
Okay. So that's 28 years ago.
28 years ago? There's no way.
We're in 2024. There's 24 years.
How old are we?
Right
I don't understand how the math works out.
We're coming up on 50, big guy.
I was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, and we're pushing 50.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right, we're going to jump right into this. So I've discussed with you, I've discussed with Gigi, my wife, I've discussed kind of how to do this episode without anyone feeling bad. Because obviously this is this is my side of the story, and this person has their side of the story, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad 30 years later or whatever this is.
Of course.
And it's not about that. It's about our defining moment. So I don't want to bring in other people. So there's a significant thing that happened that forced a breakup. Okay. But we don't have to get into the details, even though if you ever see me on the street and you want to hear it, it is so goddamn funny. It is the best breakup.
So we're skipping over the good part.
Do you know the good part?
No, that's why you told me you wouldn't tell me. You're like, I'm telling you on the podcast. I don't remember it. I of course, we talked about it a million times 25 years ago, but I don't remember it anymore.
So we're going to cut this. So I'll tell you the story. And I'm like, so I'm going to pick back up from that laughter because I just told Eric the story that, again, stop me on the street and I'll tell you the story. But it's a good story.
It's a good story.
This defining moment starts with a breakup. And when you're that young, 18-ish years old, you think that's the end of the world, especially like first love type thing, blah, blah, blah. But my it's weird because I don't exactly know how to tell the story because there's so many pieces. Like, I didn't have any discernible skills at 18 years old, and I certainly didn't have a future laid out in front of me. Like, you knew you wanted to be an engineer, so that's what
Right.
you went to school for, and
Right.
became an engineer in 15 different disciplines.
Actually, none, but whatever.
But you got degrees in those disciplines. Whatever. I don't know what you do now. You set lights up for something. So to that, like at 18 years old, I thought I was just going to have a kind of 9 to 5, probably manual labor job, maybe work in a store. My family worked in factories, stores, those kind of things. We didn't really you didn't have these big lofty dreams.
Sure.
Or at least you didn't say them out loud, number one, and number two, you didn't think you could actually do it. We've spoken about this on past.
Sure, you grew up in a blue collar household, right? And,
right. Hardworking, good people, but that's all I knew. It's all I saw, and I knew I wasn't like as intelligent as you to go to sit and like do all the classes and stuff. So this person that I was dating, once we broke up, and at the time, is a little bit.
I want to add a piece to this. So I think it's important to state this was your first real long-term relationship. This was a 3-year plus relationship. This wasn't like something short, something quick, something. So it had a lot of relevance to your life at that time. I mean, this is something that had, and through some very formative years in your life, like growing up, right? So we're talking about like, call it 16 to 19-ish, maybe a little before, a little after, I don't know, something along those lines. Yeah. Extremely formative years, especially when you're trying to figure out things about what am I doing with my life, right? Which is like a post-high school analysis and, all that kind of stuff. So okay, continue.
And then, and keep it in mind that, high school, those 4 years have such an influence on the rest of your lives, right? Like you'll never get those friends back that know you like that. And
you talk about it all the time. The last few years you've let it go, but you used to talk about it for forever, about those are the best years of your life.
Oh, they were the greatest. They were so good. Like the high school years, just the carefree.
Let's not derail, but
yes, I could go on about that.
I know you could.
But the timing of this is a little bit weird. But I worked at a movie theater and I loved it. I mean, that was the first time where I loved going to work. I absolutely enjoyed every aspect of it. But one of the coolest things was back then the films came on these big digital canisters, and so you can't ship a big digital canister, so they would come in small little reels. So I'd have to go through and splice those reels together.
Yeah, you're not talking about digital, right? You mean
no?
Analog.
This was film. This was literal film
analog.
Back then.
You said digital.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
So it was all film, actual film prints, and they were on these big canisters at the end, but you had to create you had to put them together from these little canisters. And so they would be like 8 canisters that you'd have to splice together, right? Then you'd get the trailers for that week that, a couple days before Friday or whenever they were going to premiere. So each week you had to switch out trailers. You could put them in, I believe you could put them in any order. Anyways,
what ends up the movie previews before the movie.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I would, after the movies are done and after the screening's done, I don't believe I really don't remember this part, but I don't think we sent the movies back. Certainly did not send the trailers back, but I don't ever remember breaking down a film. So I don't know what we did with them once they were out of the theaters. Anyways, the point is the trailers we would just pitch because they were so small. So what ended up happening at night, I would sit there and splice my own kind of trailers together. Now, I in my head, they probably came out way better than what they actually were, but I thought they were so cool. Then you could put it up on the projector and see them. And I was like, this would be cool if this could be a job. And I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, and she said, well, why don't you go to film school? It's like, what? You can't go to film school. Either you were born, being related to Steven Spielberg, or you weren't. And I wasn't.
Last name wasn't Spielberg.
It's unfortunate, Mom. She did like all this research for me on how to get into a film school, what you need, all this stuff. And I literally remember being like, I'm never gonna call. I'm never gonna do anything. I was really lazy at the time, and like you had to write like a whole story and stuff. And I was like, there's no way that's gonna happen.
Wait, that's like your application essay, right? You're talking about? Yeah, you have to write for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
And I'm speeding through a lot of this because, again, even though this breakup was the defining moment, it's not what I'm actually going to talk about today.
Yeah. Sure.
The defining moment was the kickoff. And like we always talk about is, okay, so you break up. That doesn't mean, from point A to point B. The
Sure.
breakup is what started this whole thing. And that's the
Yeah.
defining moment. But there's all these steps in between.
Yeah.
Okay. So she had this packet. She gave it to me.
Yeah, back in the day. So just to add to that, so back in the day, right, you would call or you would send away for information so that the school or the college would send you pamphlets and like booklets and stuff about the school and all that. Those were the promotional materials for the school. My sister Amanda made fun of me for referencing pamphlets for Full Sail when, when
right.
on like episode 1. She's like, "Aha, you said pamphlet." So
you don't even know. Yeah,
no,
you're right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and so. So the school was called IFAC, International Fine Arts College. Now keep it in mind, this is a nothing school. It doesn't even exist anymore. It's a nothing film school.
It's small. It's a small school.
Small film school in Miami.
Yep.
At this time, when you break up with someone, especially in my head where I went into a tailspin, right? Like
scary place.
I went scary places, like just dark cloud over me, the whole every day, all day long, and every song had a I gotta play this song first so she can get back with me, and it gets crazy, right? Like, and you knew me, and that was probably the worst I've ever been in my life in terms of depression mixed with no ambition, mixed with anger, blah blah blah. So my whole life at that point was just trying to get her back. It wasn't about what am I going to do in the future, wasn't any of that. So there was a moment that I knew that it was kind of over, and like I can't go. I either have to leave Michigan, or if I keep going down that path, it's going to end up nowhere good. So I decided to leave Michigan. I remember telling my mom I'm going to go to film school in Miami, and I did zero research on this, by the way. I don't even remember talking to you about it. I do remember, and this goes back to like, I don't remember our history.
I remember filling out the application we did over at my house because
we
ended
took
up
pictures.
And I have all those pictures. Let's show a couple of them in their glory.
We are
right
not.
Now.
We are not doing that. 100% not doing that.
But you had to submit, which also, by the way, is illegal now. You can't do that. You like ask for somebody to submit their picture along with their application. But anyway. Keep going.
No, I get that. Well, so when I started the process of filling out the paperwork, I did zero research. Should I go any other film school? It was this woman sent me this stuff. It's in Miami,
right.
And I decided I'm gonna take this on. So I remember. Do you remember the song? So one of the things is you had to write a story to get in. It was the first story I ever wrote, and by wrote I mean I completely plagiarized the song Featherhead and Lucky Lack.
Oh wow.
The Blues Traveler.
Poignant and epic saga of Featherhead and Lucky Lack.
Yeah, so John Moss, Ernest Goodley, if you're listening to it, my submission was totally plagiarized. If you want to kick me out of school, I'm down for that.
The good news is it was a rare track. It wasn't on any of their main albums. It was a B-side track.
It was totally rare track. And if you saw, Goodley and Moss, there's no way they were listening to Blues Traveler anyway. It was a totally rare track. But I
did not remember that. That's hilarious.
I remember being so scared because again, I'm 18 or maybe 19. I don't know the laws. I'm like, can I get arrested for this?
Wow.
Like, am I going to jail?
Wow.
So I get in. I tell my mom, I think I told my mom after I got in, because I was like, well, if I don't get in, I'm not going to even bring it up.
Sure.
So I tell my mom, and she had this moment. She tells me now she has this moment of like, should I let him go? Like, none of us, like my brother stayed in Michigan. My sister was in Michigan. No kid left for Michigan or left Michigan. Right. So I am shocked that she let me go because she's not really like that. Like, she's not like, yeah, go ahead. And it's not that anything she could have done, but she was really encouraging. It was like, you should absolutely follow your dreams. And again, the dreams to me is such a big thing because I had a dream of becoming an editor. That was my dream. Right. And this one statement plays such a big role later on.
Mhm.
That one statement of, I just want to be an editor. Can you even imagine editing a TV show or a movie or something like, as long as I could do a commercial, anything, if I could do that, my dream come true. So go to Miami, and from the word go, keep in mind, very first day in Miami, I've never been to Miami before, it was going to school here. And from the word go, that dark cloud got so much darker because there's nothing familiar about this place. The culture was extremely different. You
Huge
know, the
culture shock.
languages you heard on day one, and you know, we've talked about this before, that my kids speak Spanish, my wife speaks English as their third language, it's Italian and Spanish. So when you're from Michigan, a small town from Michigan, getting immersed in that, the music was different, the food was different, everything's just different. And where some people, like my brother, when he moved to Miami, he embraced it. I never embraced it. And so it was just this depression on top of missing this girl that I loved, missing you. I remember I used to buy, to be able to talk to you, I'd buy these phone cards
Minutes.
for $20. You could buy minutes. And it was like 180 minutes for $20. And if you buy 2 of them, you get a free extra 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So we would sit there on the phone.
Yeah.
And then I think AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
I mean, we would do G&E, good night everybody.
Yep.
From that's how we'd sign off all of
Animaniacs.
our
Yep.
it was an Animaniacs reference.
Yep.
That's how we would sign off all of our IMs or whatever they were. And they were
Well,
group chats. Like you remember, like you could
yeah, but I'm going to nerd out one step further. We actually used the sound effects so when we typed it in, it would actually play the sound on the other side. But the only way it would do that is if we had the sounds loaded on the computers already ahead of time. So you and I had worked together to figure out, okay, here's the sounds, put those in this folder for the sound library, whatever the thing is, so we could trigger sounds. And we had so much fun with that shit. It was so lame, but it was super fun.
I took from you, I would build up this persona of who I was or who I thought I should be, not necessarily who I was. Right. So I took from you like all of the good attributes that you had, knowing about computers, being nice, willing to help out any person at any time, and then figuring out like, all right, Saturday's work day, because that was how you grew up. And then it's study time from this time to this time. I took all of that. And it's stuff I never did before in my life, ever. Right. You know, I never studied. I got good enough grades just because I think some of the teachers were like, oh, let's get them out of here. But never did above and beyond on anything. Other than movie theater, I did go above and beyond there.
So I just want to wrap that up a little bit. So what your goal, you were extremely lost on multiple scenarios, right? About going away, not having any friends, not knowing any people, brand new environment, brand new scenario, starting school, actually getting into a school that you cared about being at, like, because it was to put you on a path toward a thing, right? It was the first time you were really, well, but it's the first time you were pursuing anything. Point being is, like, when you went down there, you did this analysis of like, so what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And you just started trying to pull from different scenarios that you'd seen over the last few years or even growing up, right? That you thought would help. Yeah. And would lead to some level of success for you in your current scenario.
But a big factor here was I don't recall how this happened because I did have to write a story, but I wasn't in the film department. I was in the digital, like the graphic. I don't even know what it was called. It was digital arts, I think it was called. So I was there, like you're assigned a counselor, or I think that's what she was. And I'm like, I want to edit films. I want to do graphics and whatever. And she's like, oh, well, you want to get in the digital arts. And so I was in this digital arts program, basically with a bunch of people who'd never, ever like tore apart a computer or something. So I at least saw that you could do that. Plus I always had you as a lifeline, and I would constantly tell people I could do stuff that I couldn't. And I would literally go that night and learn how to do it. I remember telling one of my professors, again, this is 1997. So it's not like it's easy making a website. You had to learn how to code.
Yeah.
And this one teacher was like, does any of you guys know how to do a website? This was on a Friday night. I was like, I do. I had no clue. Never. I wouldn't. So like, there's a whole thing. Like, I didn't even know what you would write code in at the time. Yeah. I was just like, well, look, clearly there's an internet and people are doing websites. So how hard could it be? In 1997, it was extremely fucking hard.
There's a lot of code.
And so I went to Barnes and Noble and bought a coding book, an HTML book, and I was
HTML for dummies.
So anyway, so I'm doing really well in school, doing really well in terms of like building up, I don't want to say a resume, but building up knowledge of things that I could do. But I was so homesick. Every day was missing this woman, and like, just how can I get back to Michigan to figure out how to get her back and stuff. So my eye wasn't necessarily on the prize. So I decided to quit school. Talked to my mom. She was like, yeah, come home. Like, you're not yourself. It was bad. So I'm sitting there in the dean's office.
Hold on. So I decided to quit school. That wasn't actually about your success in school, right? Meaning
no,
you
but it was that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Like, I'm learning like Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff. And I didn't realize that I would later go on to use that every single day of my career.
Right.
But we were learning, like, I mean, everything that they do now, just, kind of cut to later in my life. I went back and taught everything that was taught in that. But it wasn't, and it wasn't the school, it wasn't the program. It was me. It was 100% me. So I go in and I sit down, and I'm sitting there and I'm nervous. So my legs shaking.
This is at the counselor you're going to talk to.
This is at the dean's office. Dean. And I remember sitting there shaking, just being like, I'm going to quit school. Like, and I don't know what the ramifications are. Of not having ambition. The one thing I was not was a quitter. Like, of all the hard times you and I have been through, I never quit, except on our friendship. But that's another story for another time.
Couple times.
2 or 3 times. Evidently, I'm a quitter. I didn't quit quitting. So I'm sitting there and I don't even know, like, twist of fate. I don't know how to say it, like, serendipitously. The person waiting to talk to the dean before me was this guy, Ernest Goodley, who is the chairperson of film. Oh, and he's seen me before because I would stay late after class. I was working in the, I think one of my jobs was monitoring the computer, since I was the only one who pretended to know about computers. Everyone's like, oh, can you swap out RAM here? I was like, yeah, Eric, how do you swap out RAM? Hold on one second, because my headphones just, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little hot. You're kind of excited. I don't know.
I know. I'm super excited. So he's like, so Goodley's seen me around and he's like, what are you doing? You in trouble or whatever? And I was like, I'm actually going to go back to Michigan, head back to Michigan. And I don't recall the conversation other than he was like, why? Like, is this not what you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to tell stories, blah, blah. He's like, well, why are you in the digital arts program? And we started talking. Even so, the dean was like, hey, who's next? And he's like, no, we'll be with you in a minute, And he talked me into staying. He's like, dude, come to the film side. If you want to tell stories, you want to edit films, you need to be in the film side. And if give it one semester, it's like, if it's not what you want, but you can't go out saying you want to do this and you never got an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
That moment changed my life. And I don't even know, like, if I had to recall, it wasn't that it was like this majorly inspiring speech, as opposed to, I didn't want to be a quitter. Like, I wanted to give myself the chance of, he's right that, like, in digital arts, you're not telling stories, you're not cutting films, so let me go make the film and cut it. And I took everything I learned from the digital side, all the lies I was telling about how well I knew computers and everything about that, and I was applying it to the film, and I became one of the most valuable people there. I remember my roommate at the time, Pete, Marcy, Lindsay, if you're listening, have him listen to this. Pete was light years ahead of everyone at that school. Just was making films, like, he was a Spielberg, making films at 10 years old. He came in with, instead of writing like, here's what a story could be, he came in with a film. He's like, here, watch my film, and everyone's like, yeah. So I remember he had a film that he needed to get done. So I begged. I was like, the school closed at like 9. All the things. I was like, how can you guys be a creative school and you're closing at 9? Like, some of the best work happens at midnight, and I'm part of the lab. Like, I run the lab until 9. Like, if I stayed during the night, couldn't we make this 24 hours? You have security because it was in a mall. or it was in a hotel, and you have security there, and like, what would it be? And they ran that right up to the ladder, and I got to stay there at night working on films. So I was working 24 hours a day essentially on some of this times. And that really, it's not that I stopped missing this woman whose name shall not be mentioned, even though
the one we do not speak of.
The one we do not speak of, but I think, in all honesty, we'll get to the end a little bit. But she's actually a really good person, and it's not me just saying that. Like, we reached out to each other. I reached out to her after. We'll go through this chronologically, but when I met my wife and I realized what life could be, like, I actually reached out to her out of pure, like, I hope you're okay, and I'm sorry for any pain I caused you, because I was a jerk. I was selfish, childish. I lied, like a bunch of things that you don't feel good about inside.
Yeah.
But when I realized what a person that you're with could be, it's like, oh, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be that person. But anyways, that's kind of the end. But so once I got into the film program, everything kind of opened up for me. It was like really a crystal clear, like, this is what I want to do with my life. And again, I still had that like singular goal. I want to edit a TV show, a film, whatever it is. So I'll say this about Goodley. He basically saved my career and everything that I had after that, because I was bags packed, ready to go. And if I don't have that, but I will say this, he fucked up on the film of the year. He gave the film of the year to someone else. Mine should have been film of the year. So I have to carry that scar. Yeah. I have to carry that scar. That's another story for another time. But fuck you, Goodley.
Okay. So I want to just kind of frame up the interesting aspect of your defining moment of Goodley having a conversation with you. There are no, I get it. I know, I'm not saying that's the exact one, but it's part of this whole story.
Yeah.
Because I think it's
that is the one. I mean, like, literally, I walked out of that meeting with him, not scheduled meeting or whatever. I walked out of that going, I'm gonna give it a shot.
It did absolutely change your life. I think it's fun to think about all of the, if you want to call it fate or you want to call it chance, circumstance, whatever all those things are, like you're talking about serendipity, yada yada, all the things that had to line up for the two of you to be in that specific space at that exact moment, and his willingness to be that open, and he's that kind of guy, right? To interact with anybody, whatever. But the person that's willing to just ask the question, to actually even start that conversation. Because if I'm sitting in there and I don't say a thing to that student, whatever. So the fact that he has dedicated his life to teaching and helping others, right, in ways, just lends itself to him starting that conversation and having your best interest in mind.
A little emotional here. You're not wrong on any of that. No, I'm getting a little emotional, but you're not wrong on any of that, because. And you and I have hung out with Goodley many, many a time, drinking with him in college. He's the type of guy that, like, if he sees someone, like, I had to have just looked like that.
Sure.
That kid in Charlie Brown with the cloud over
you.
Like,
shaking, but you were like, nervous. You were
right.
Yeah.
He could have then, like, all right, let's ease him into this, whatever. He was hard day one. Like, he reminded me of Coach Emmer in the sense that, like, you're not going to get away with shit. Right. I get that you may be leaving, but I'm not going to give you any free pass, because I don't need to win you over. Like, this is how hard the business is, so I'm going to be that hard on you. The other inspiring thing is, and John Moss is coming this weekend again. We're going to do some writing again. John Moss was super inspirational, and a lot of the teachers were there. I don't want to get like Russo and Wiskman, and they were really inspirational, but Moss did it. Moss had a film that Tarantino produced, and in 1997, anyone that was even like in the same room as Tarantino, massive deal. And the fact that Tarantino was on his movies behind the scenes. We're going to have John Moss later, so I'll let him tell the whole Tarantino story. But like, these aren't the great thing about going to this small film school was it was almost like a rag bag of independent filmmakers. Like they didn't have the education of like the book education, but they had the education
Experience.
on experience. That's the way of saying it.
Yeah.
And even Goodley was doing his first independent film then. I think he only took the teaching job so that he could have edit equipment because it was so expensive. You had Wiskman, who was a great DP, Irusu, great writer, Moss, great writer. You can go down the line. So there was this inspiration that like everything opened up of like, oh,
well, hold on. So let's define that a little bit. So you were surrounded by people that had passion for the thing that you were in, and so it's surrounded by those individuals to be able to see those things. People
and
that
doing
knew,
doing it on a weekly basis.
There, correct. They're out there doing it. They really know the thing. This isn't just you're coming to class, you're doing book stuff. This is I can talk about the experience. I know what this stuff is and how that translates to the real world. It's real world experience that is worth a lot.
Set etiquette. What do you do? What do you say? How do you act? Stuff that like, you can be on the film with your fellow students, but like that's not how you act on a film set. That's how you act with your friends making movies, which is not professional. One of the things that I really like we grew up, you and I, digging ditches. We grew up caddying, working in restaurants. So the work ethic I was like, worst case scenario, and I don't want to demean this because it is a tough job, but it's valuable, is gripping. Like worst case scenario, I can always lift. I can always bring lights, set them up and stuff. So I would go to these sets. I remember just like, as long as you're on set, be the person that everyone wants to be around and do your job better than anyone else. And that's how I kept getting job after job after job.
I can't speak to exactly, today, but back then that was the way, right? In terms of like, you wanted on the set, you started as a PA. And if you kicked ass as a PA and you started to make friends, you started to figure stuff out and you did a really good job, you quickly moved yourself up, right? You moved to other jobs and other credits and other things. So that it was like you had to, earn your keep, right? And prove yourself before you got to get to the other positions.
And so I graduate, still cloud over my head about this relationship. I think I wanted to play the tortured artist. I don't, me, I don't consider myself an artist at all, but I wanted like, oh, you need this heartache to write the script for it to pull out. And it's like, you don't. So I edit my first TV show by myself. I mean, there was steps that it took to get there, but I did it and I didn't feel fulfilled. I edited another one.
You didn't feel fulfilled.
I was like, oh, this is my dream came true. And at no point was I like, what I'm supposed to be like joyful, or I don't like it. Just, I felt like it should have felt different. Like it's a dream come true.
The gratification wasn't there that you thought was maybe going to be there when you started doing the thing you were pursuing.
Right. And then I did more shows, do more things. And still all that mentality of just fake it till you make it type thing of like, I can do websites. I can code apps. I can, you want me to shoot something? Sure. I can
graphics,
shoot it.
All that,
whatever it is. I would just say yes to everything and just learn it.
Yeah.
I remember having dinner with Jeff and Marcella. Jeff, who you know Jeff and Marcella really well, but Jeff and Marcella are super successful LA composers. Like if you look up what they've done, it's just massive stuff. We were out to dinner one night and I still had the poor me artist, blah, 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 like, oh, I just want to talk about my ex-girlfriend. And this is like 10 years after at this point. No, maybe not. Maybe like
not 10, but yeah.
It was like 5 or 6 years after.
Yeah,
I met Gigi in 2006. But anyways, so the dinner. So we're having this dinner, and I'm explaining to Jeff Marcella that like I remember this like it was yesterday. It was like a punch in the face, and it sounds so simple when you hear this. But we were talking. I was like, I hit my dream, and I'm not happy. And Marcella goes, "There's an evolution of a dream." And I was like, huh, I never thought about that. It's like a dream is not the destination. Right. I don't know if I can explain it well because it
no,
that's really
I think it's valid. Yeah, it's that's the age old. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Right. But it comes down to is like, well, you're also allowed. Like she kind of gave me the permission to have another dream. That dream can evolve. You know, like, yeah, you got to that destination. Doesn't mean that's where you stop. It's evolving into directing. It's evolving into producing and to owning a company and doing all those things. And I, to this day, like 47 years old, start going like, all right, where am I evolving to now? Right? Like, let's keep this going. I hit this. Wow. We sold our company. That was a dream come true. You and I working together, a dream come true, even though it went up in flames, but it was a dream come true. Like all those things that you think about along the way. And then it's one of these, well, don't rest on that dream. That's what I learned from that. And it all started off of a breakup and this person doing the legwork to get me out of Michigan. And I don't know that I explained this story that well. I think I'm sure I'm all over the place, but think about like that. Anyone listening, think about that person in your life that hurt you. Guys hurt each other. So I don't want to say she hurt me, but I don't want to say it like all her fault. Like you're so hurt, and then you realize, dude, we were 16 when we met. 16 years old. 16.
Yeah, kids.
And it had kids, and it had this much of effect on me through my life. So much so that I was like, anytime I wanted to quit film or whatever, or quit studying or quit learning, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna prove her wrong. I'm gonna go do it.
We've touched on this. I don't know if it ever made it into any episodes. We've touched on this before, and you are very negative motivated, right? Yes. So you use negativity or generate or create negativity around a situation or with a person or
I have to have a villain.
Yeah,
I have to have a villain to go after. Thank you, Mom, for that.
It's what motivates you to do better, try harder, do more. But it has yielded success for you. So, whatever.
Yeah,
which means Goodly not giving you the film is not a fuck up.
I agree. I agree.
It continued to motivate you.
Dude,
there were so many things I remember hearing. You
heard about it for years.
It was we heard about for years on end, and then I
had to hear
about I heard about the one we do not speak of for years on end. From the breakup and years. I mean, and then the film, and I had to hear about it for years.
Yeah.
Before that,
it wasn't. I think it was the day that I let that go, because I need someone to like give me permission to let it go. Is Dale West, the guy who gave me my start, and my whole career is hinged upon him and Chris Nicholas. We were in the car, and Dale was like a father to me, Chris like an older brother. I mean, they took me under their wing and we're driving in the car. And I remember bringing up to these guys who are professionals, like
they're cameraman, audio guys. They own the company, post-production facility, and they're they do freelance camera and audio.
Some of the highest end stuff you'd ever see. And here I am in the back. And I remember bringing up them, and they're like, "You look like you're deep in thought." I was like, just going back," because I was interning for them at the time before they hired me. So they knew the players involved, and they're like, "What's wrong?" or whatever. And I said, "I lost film of the year." "Oh, you're gonna cry?" Film of the year. Were you gonna light up cons with that? You're gonna win an Oscar with that film? And I was like, as we were on our way to like interview Tim Hardaway or something, I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, poor Rick back there. You want some tissue?
Tough love. That's tough love right there.
But it was like literally like I remember. Do you remember one of the days we were going to play golf, like film golf with who's the catcher, the Tigers catcher?
Matt Noakes?
Not Matt Noakes.
Oh,
All-Star.
Lance Parrish.
No, All-Star, like in the 2000s.
I can see his face.
Pudge Rodriguez.
Yes, Pudge.
Yeah. So we were going to go with Pudge. I had my Detroit hat on and like he's out in Florida playing and it was just gonna be me, Dale, and him, and we're just watching him play a round of golf and stuff. So it's just us talking, totally living the dream. And here I am like, oh, my poor girlfriend, I didn't win film of the year. And I'm like, it doesn't get better than this. I was at game 7 of the Heat and Dicks, going to the locker room. We interviewed Patrick Ewing that day. And here I am like, oh, I got to be the poor artist. I couldn't just accept that this was amazing. And now I look back on it and I was like, oh, I wish I would have soaked in every second.
Yeah, that's a hindsight 2020 thing. I've had a few instances of that recently. However, I will say you still operate the same way. Like
I know.
you still, have difficulty. You're better at trying to be in the moment or appreciate the moment or understand, but you're still, nothing's changed in terms of.
Well, understanding has changed. Understanding some of the big deals versus little deals, and you've helped me through a lot of those moments, especially with the business. And David, who we had on the podcast, Carabinus, says this a lot, is like, you have your truth, which is about 80%. The other person that you're with has their truth, and that's 80%. But the truth lies somewhere in that middle, right? Like, you're only given 80% of the story, because that whole 100% will make you look bad.
Right.
Same thing with like why I want to like praise this woman that we had this breakup with is, and let's start with two. We should have started with this. Like, if you know who she is, don't reach out to her. Like, don't like I don't want her hearing this and then being like, dude, why are you even bringing me up? And we purposely didn't say names here and stuff.
Our intent is not to name names. It's not to bring it up in the comments and the whatever, because there are people that are going to listen, are going to watch, they're going to know who this is.
Are you talking about this person?
It was a big relationship in your life, and we still have a lot of friends, from those time frames. So we're intentionally not mentioning it. So let's please, keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my 3 defining moments, I would say, wrapped up into one.
And there's 3 defining moments.
Just to recap, it's the breakup, the wanting to quit school, Goodley changing it, and then actually going in the dream,
the permission to evolve.
The permission to evolve. So thank you, Marcella.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did not know about the Marcella.
Oh my God. I remember that, dude. I remember being knocked to the ground when we were having it. Like, cause me, like I want to soak into my sadness. I want to want to live there. And I want other people to be like, you have permission to be sad. You should be sad. Like, getting a dream's hard and like blah, blah, blah. Like, it was more of like, no, your dream evolved. You're allowed to do that. And I just remember like literally like for the probably 30 to a minute, just like, oh, that's right. That's what happened, but I didn't have a label for it. And how do I make myself feel bad if the dream could evolve? And
so isn't that, so it's actually another scenario in this, in this story of someone, in your personal life in this instance, that actually cared enough to be engaged enough in the conversation to then, it wasn't an intentional mentoring scenario, but when friends or people get together, so when friends get together and talk, but you have a genuine interest in what the other person is saying, so her willingness to go there is very cool.
And also the fact that they had success right out of the gate. Like at this point, like I had, look, you could say I had success because I was editing shows and doing even camera stuff at that time. So you could say I had success. I judge obviously there's levels of success, like Spielberg is way above me and blah blah blah, but
I like that you just put you and Spielberg in the same category.
Dude, what about PJ last week being like, hey, wait, I can't believe we're talking about me and the Beatles. What are we doing? It's great. I love you, PJ. So they had success. So here in like Dale, when Dale said to me, Dale West, when he's like, oh, you're gonna cry about that film, as we're on our way to like these unbelievable moments, is like when people who have surpassed where you thought you could be and are on that level, like Jeff and Marcella, when you go and look at their credits, they are like other level.
Of course, but not to take away from their hard work. They are, but not to take away from any of their hard work. You talent. Said, but you presented it like success right off the bat, right? Like no, that's not talent luck. And hard work,
talent and luck. But you do so. But I was about to say that I think you're successful in the film business if you can build a career on it. There's people who way more talented than me and couldn't build a career because they didn't have that something or other. And it's not there's people that had successful films and then will never work in this business again. Not because the film wasn't good or whatever. They don't have that other factor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not
kind
just
of other
about
gear.
Yeah. It's not just about talent, or it's not just about hard work, or it's not just about your personality. It's not just about, these things. It's a combination and circumstantial.
Yeah.
And, one of the other pieces
luck.
there is luck, right? So, but we've also talked about, though, along the way, I think you alluded to it a little bit in here, but I think there's a really interesting, I mean, look, that's the hindsight again, scenario, but because the reality is you were able to sell your company, you've been, ultra successful, up to this point. I don't think that the decision to do the big fish in a little pond, which was the scenario that you originally cultivated,
about that a lot.
yeah, versus the small fish in a huge ocean, right? Which is out in LA. Like you had and created opportunities for yourself by the hard work, and were able to be noticed because you're not in that huge, So there were some real benefits to your path. And then going all the way back to, I have no idea how that played out, but the one we do not speak of, reaching out about that particular film school. You know what I mean? Like getting that particular information from a film school is it's crazy. And to look at the path now and look back on it and go like, wow,
crazy.
That's nuts.
All the steps that led to that. But to that, what you just said something.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I just want to go back and touch on from the Marcella standpoint, which is like for the listener is that reminder for me and for people that are listening, or whatever, of how influential something that's seemingly not important could be in someone's life. That conversation, like taking that moment, having that conversation, could literally mean nothing to you and could mean everything to them.
And not even that it means nothing, but when you're friends, you talk about a million things, right? And so why this? No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. But why did this one thing? Because it was what needed to be said at the moment it needed to be said to a person who needed to hear it. Yeah. Like you never know other people's what they're going through or how it will be reacted. Sure. But it also just shows like they're just special people, anyways. But like. They're always thinking about other people. Canadians. Damn Canadians. And you got to see, it's interesting doing this podcast with you because you knew all this. Obviously we ran through this in a condensed form. Any one of those moments we could have talked further about the defined moments for sure. Because like Dale West, like we haven't even spoken about that guy. If that guy wasn't who he was, I wouldn't be where I am. Tammy, who we're going to have on, her story, all these things, like I like that the story, but it also kind of like limits some of the questions. So it does. I think at some point we decided this. We decided this episode was going to be my defining moment. It was going to be the India story, right here. but which is coming. But I felt like before we get into anything else, I kind of had to talk about the two things that I'm passionate about is the evolution of a dream, and that you kind of have to have a North Star, I guess, like somewhere that you can go, this is what I want to do. And because without that, what do you have?
Well, no, I don't disagree with your statement.
You like how I'm like, we have 1 hour to do this, and at 58 minutes I talk about the North Star. All right, ready? You got 1 minute, go.
I agree with you. It's good to have a direction. However, that makes it sound like you only have one thing and you have to go that one thing. It's something you're moving toward, but you can figure out it's not the thing and now redirect, right? Course correct.
Or evolve, the evolution of a dream, meaning that like I put a lot of eggs in this basket and then you go, like, am I going to be stuck here with this unhappiness or no? Pick a new North Star. Yeah. Go towards that. I'm not saying you have to have one or that it can evolve, as we learned with Marcella. It's a pick something that you think you can do at any age. Dude, we started Roba late in life.
Sure.
Like,
yes.
And by the way, I don't want to simplify this either. And this is why I thought I really want to do the podcast, because like, unfortunately, like Cam's, we're going to have to re-record, but like Cam's starting up a brewery. Like, dude, how do you get the money to do that? How do you get the permission to do that? How do you get all the things that line up? Or PJ talking about going with hey, this week I want to try do an alcohol company and did it. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, it is crazy. It's cool. You gotta jump.
Yeah, I probably should, just so I can actually get this thing edited. Are we good?
Are we done?